Is Katy, Texas all that it's cracked up to be, and is it somewhere that you should be considering for buying a home? We're going to get into it in this video. Katy, Texas is definitely one of the most well-known suburbs, and it's one that I get hit up about damn near every day, but is it right for you? So in this video, I'm not going to hold back. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about Katy, Texas to make a great decision, from the real estate to the property taxes to the traffic, everything that you need to know so that you can make the best decision on whether or not Katy, Texas is for you. So if that sounds like something that you're interested in, stay tuned. Hopping right into it, where in the world is Katy, Texas? If you are not familiar, Katy, Texas is on the west side of Houston. It's about 30 to 35 miles from downtown Houston. And so it is one of our exterior suburbs. To the west, just north of it, you're going to have some parts of Cypress. South of it, you're going to have a jumbled up of, depending on what turn you make, you're going to have a Fulshear, you're going to have Richmond, Rosenberg. All of these kind of blend in together, and some parts of this is even considered Katy once you start to get into some of these suburbs. So Katy, Texas, for all intents and purposes, is one of the most popular suburbs in all of Houston, on the west side of the world. And it seems to be ever growing. I feel like when I first moved here with my family here in 2015, a lot of these areas weren't considered Katy. I would say that most of this was probably considered Brookshire. And more you're going to see more and more of these communities kind of spread into what would have been considered old Brookshire and becoming Katy. So as the area grows and develops, there's a lot of communities that are kind of starting to spread outside of the bounds of what used to be considered Katy. But definitely it is one of those ones that if you're looking for real estate and you're looking on that side of the world, you're going to come across something in Katy, Texas. So who is Katy, Texas for? Katy, Texas is mainly, I would say, the main draw of people that want to be in Katy is for someone that wants to have a city suburb that is developed, that feels diverse, that has a lot of things to do, and that also has great schools. And so if you know anything about Katy and you know anything about some of our suburbs that have been developed out there, we have a lot of heavy hitters, a lot of older master plan communities that are super developed, that float in between that Katy to Richmond kind of area. There's a lot of communities out there that have already been established, that are set, and there's a lot that are still coming out in that area. You got your Cane Islands, you have your Sunterras, you have Ellisons, you have so many that are in the greater Katy area at large. But as far as who's looking out there and the people that are giving me the calls are people that are looking for diversity, great options, things to do, as well as an overall well-balanced place that doesn't feel too rural. What is there to do in Katy, Texas? Well, Katy, Texas, as I said, is one of the most established suburbs that we have in the greater Houston metro, and you can do whatever you want. If you need to go shopping, you got that. If you want nice restaurants, you got that. If you want to go to some parks, you got that. If you want to go to amusement parks, you got that out there as well. If you live in Katy and you work in Katy, you technically never have to leave Katy or ever have to come to Houston, because everything that you're going to need is going to be in your community, either locally to your specific subdivision, if you're in one of those big master plan communities, or it's going to be within a couple minutes drive of your location. So hopping in on the map and just showing you what I mean, there's a lot that you can do in Katy. As you come out to this part of the world, things are going to get definitely a little bit more chainy. So where I can say that in the city of Houston, stuff will probably be a little bit more unique, a little bit more one-off. Out here, you're going to get your chain restaurants like your Cheddars or your BJ's and things of that nature. As you come out to the west side, though, you'll see that you have cool places like Main Event, where you can go get you a drink, go to a restaurant, have a little arcade fun. Katy Mills Mall is one of the places that me and my wife probably go to the most. And to say that we don't live out in Katy, and we actually used to live out on the west side in the Energy Corridor and never went until we actually moved into the city, is kind of crazy to me. But we're out there all the time. And I would say it's not as premium as the premium outlet mall in Cypress, but all the stores that you're going to need, and better prices, much better prices than you would see at the Cypress outlet mall, you're going to see in Katy Mills. You got your movie theater in there. You're going to have your trampoline places, your indoor climbing. You're going to have a few museums out here. There's just a lot that you can do in the greater Katy area. So if you live out in Katy, it's definitely not going to be one of those things where you're looking around asking yourself, what is there to do? Are we stuck out here and we're just in the middle of nowhere, nothing to do? Whether you're in your own community and you have your own specific amenities to your communities, whether that's fishing, swimming pools, gyms, all that other stuff, or the amenities that are just going to surround you in the greater Katy area, there's a lot that you can do out in Katy. The demographic of person that typically hits me up the most on a day in, day out basis from this channel are people with families, and they are looking at places where they can move that give them diversity as well as great schools. And the number one call that I get is, what are my thoughts about Katy because of this bad boy right here, this #1 rating for schools in the Houston area, Katy ISD. And so it's no shock to me when someone reaches out to me and tells me that they have kids at school age when they say that Katy is going to be at the top of their list or their search area based on the education. So doing a deep dive right now, we're on niche.com. I'll drop a link down below so you can check it out for yourself. But it is overall rated an A+. That's an A for academics, A for teachers, clubs and activities, diversity is an A, college prep is an A+. And so to have these kind of numbers and to also have the diversity of the area that you have, it's super important. And a lot of people that reach out to me are excited to see numbers like this. Looking at the stats a little bit more in depth, it is one of the most diverse districts in all of Texas. It is one of the best overall school districts in all of Texas. And it is definitely one of the top athletic districts in all of Texas. And I definitely know that because you can look at the sheer amount that they have paid for things like stadiums out here. I think back in like 2018, 2019, they opened up like a $72 million stadium in Katy, Texas for a high school. This is not a college. This is for high school athletics. That is crazy. And that tells you how intense that they can get out here when it comes to sports in Katy, Texas. So if you have a student athlete, or if you want someone that's going to be challenged and pushed to the next level, Katy, Texas is probably one of the best places that you can put your child. Jumping down to the map, and you can just see that if you look into this, there are very few B's when it comes to being actually a part of Katy ISD. Most of these are A's, A minuses, A+, A. And so especially when you get to some of these more established communities like some of the ones I mentioned earlier, you're definitely going to see that a lot of these A+ are kind of hanging around those more desirable locations that are down, typically on the south of I-10 communities that are older and a little bit more established. As you kind of go more north and you go towards some of your newer communities like your Ellisons or your Sunterras, the ratings aren't going to be as high, but they're definitely going to be higher than what you would see in most of all of the greater Houston metro as you're looking at school districts. And when you compare that to some of the other suburbs, you're definitely going to be hard to beat a Katy ISD school when you compare it to other ISDs around the metro. Really quick, while I got you here, hi, my name is Aaron and I help families and busy professionals buy luxury and new construction homes around the Houston metro, saving them time, eliminating stress, and hopefully having a little fun along the way. If you or your family are thinking about making a move to or throughout the greater Houston metro, I would love to be your go-to. Call, text, email, hit the comment section down below and let me know if you have any questions. But without further ado, let's hop right back into the video. The next biggest elephant in the room that we got to talk about is flooding. All the people that hit me up that ask about Katy, they'll give me their spiel saying where they want to live, and then they'll say, I don't want to live anywhere that's flooded. And like I tell my clients, anywhere in the greater Houston metro, if you take on a heavy amount of rain for longer than an hour, at some level you're going to be inconvenienced by flooding here in the greater Houston metro. We just can't handle heavy rains for about an hour or more. And even if it doesn't mean that your house is going to get backed into, even if it doesn't mean that all of your property is going to flood, it does mean that if you ride around after a heavy rain, you're probably going to have some level of street flooding, but that is not unique to Katy. What I can tell you is that, like most of our suburbs, Katy does have some higher rated flood zone areas, and that's something that we can take care of on our end and check out on our end before we go on tour and look at different communities. But you can't avoid the risk completely if you move out to Katy. Jumping into my MLS, I can show you better than I can tell you. And so right now I have the parameters set to Katy Real Estate, and I have the flood FEMA map that they have given us as agents as a result of Harvey to give us a better snapshot for our clients. And so all of these areas where you see these little greenhouses are the MLS, and this is Katy. And so as you look at some of these more established communities on the far east side of Katy, they butt up against a reservoir. As you come to some of the more interior sections in some of the more desirable locations, you know, close to your Falcon Landing, close to your Cinco Ranch, you see that there are little runoffs off of this reservoir that cut through basically the heart of Katy, Texas. And so depending on where the house that you love falls, you could be very close to it. You could be right in the middle of it. You could be in an X zone where you perfectly would not be required to have flood insurance, right? And so it's going to be a case by case basis basically for every community in Katy. And so as you go throughout new construction, old construction, or resales, everywhere you go, there's going to be some level of one part of the community is likely near or in a flood zone, and one side of the community is likely not. And that's just because a lot of our communities out here just expand to a point to where they just grow and grow and grow, and the developers buy more and more land, and eventually they're going to butt up against something that is a flood source. But this is a real estate channel, baby. So what do I think about Katy real estate? I love Katy real estate. I think it gives you a lot of bang for your buck. I think it has a lot of variety as far as types of communities, but for the day in, day out person, this is going to be the most stereotypical suburban community that you can damn near get in the Houston metro. Just based on being out in Katy as much as I am, it feels like there are hundreds of subdivisions that are out in the greater Katy area, and they can range from a wide variety of smaller one-off communities where there's just a couple hundred homes to master plan communities where there's several thousand homes and several thousand acres. It really just depends on the lifestyle that you want and the amenities you want. There are also some rural areas where you can get some ranch style homes and some kind of one-off development. But for the most part, if you think about Katy on the old side or the new side, you're pretty much going to think about master plan communities and very large suburb communities that have been built out over the last 30 plus years. And a few of the top selling master plan communities in all of the nation are within Katy, Texas. One of my favorites on the far west side of Katy is Cane Island. It's one of those places where you can get a really big house, which is kind of different and kind of not as common as you would think in many of these master plan communities. They typically have a cap of about 65 feet, but out in Cane Island, you can go all the way up to, I believe, over 90 feet wide lots. And so you can get a really massive house out there. Perry Homes has a plan out there that I believe is built over like 5,000 square feet, brand new custom construction. And so if you want something that's really big, or if you want to be in a community that offers that wide variety of footprint and lot, whereas entry level all the way up to estates, you can get it out there in Cane Island. My next favorite out there is Ellison, and it does a similar thing that Cane Island does, but I don't think it goes quite as wide. I believe they cap it at around 80 feet wide in Ellison. And so you can still get that entry level product. You'll have footprints of about 40 feet. I believe Perry has a 40-foot product all the way up to about an 80-foot product out there. And so not quite as wide as what you could get in Cane Island. But if you want to be somewhere that has that wide variety of entry level all the way up to estate style living, you can get that in Ellison as well. And last but not least, you have the #1 selling master plan community in all of the US. You have Sunterra in Katy, Texas as well. And this is going to feature about 30 different builders, all with a wide variety of footprints from entry level all the way up to a more luxury product line, giving you a wide variety of what you can get with great amenities like a Blue Lagoon coming in their own amenity village. So it's definitely a wide variety of communities and different lifestyles that you can get throughout the greater Katy area. And that's not even to mention all of the already established communities that have their own amenities and things to do as well. But not so fast, not so fast. Not everything can be perfect. And one of the things that you got to think about when you're looking at real estate in Texas are the property taxes. Because you have so many communities that have been established for so long, you are going to run across some communities where the property taxes are much lower than you would see in any of the other metros. And so you will see some communities that are in that mid to low 2%. But as you go to these newer communities like a Cane Island, like a Sunterra, like an Ellison, you're going to be creeping up into that upper to mid 3%, probably around that 3.4 to 3.7% on average. And so depending on the price point that you're looking at, that could be a huge tax bill that you're having, where most of those newer communities are starting with an entry-level price point of somewhere around $400,000. And so $400,000 with over a 3% property tax rate, that's about $1,000 a month for your tax bill alone before you have a homestead exemption. And so definitely something to think about. Property taxes in Houston are pretty expensive compared to most places, and people that reach out to me, especially from other states, property taxes here are very expensive, but it's definitely something that varies because the landscape of where Katy, Texas is and all of our suburbs are. The property tax range is from 2 all the way up to damn near 4, and it just depends on where you are, the amenities that you have, and what infrastructure that you're being billed for in that specific community. But definitely something that you have to think about are the property taxes when you're looking out in those communities. And so if you're not familiar with how property taxes work here in Texas, we don't have a state income tax, and so all of the infrastructure that we need comes out of these much higher property taxes that you wouldn't necessarily have in some of these other states like a California that also have a state income tax. And so the infrastructure for all of your hospitals, for all of these nature trails and parks that you may have, and the number one thing that most people care the most about Katy are these great schools. All of these great schools are coming as a result of the higher property taxes that you pay in Katy. Most of these communities that have super high property taxes, you pay usually around 1% or more to the schools. When you get to these newer communities, you tack on an extra tax that is known as a mud tax, which gets all of your internet, your gas, your water, your sewer, trash, all of the stuff that you need as far as the support to that community that once wouldn't have had it because it was probably a rural farmland. You're paying a mud tax on top of that. So you add the 1% for the mud, you add the 1% for the school, you're paying a free 2% to all of the amenities and infrastructure and schools that you need for the community. So now hopefully you can see why you're paying a little bit more in some of these areas, but it's a trade-off. When you want the good schools and you want the good amenities, you're going to pay a tax for it here in the greater Houston metro. So how did I do? Did I scare you away from wanting to move to Katy, Texas? That was not my intent. I would love to be your go-to and your resource. Call, text, email, all the ways to get in contact with me are going to be underneath this video. If you found some value in this video and you're not scared away and you're thinking about making a move to Katy, Texas, then I definitely think that you should check out this video right here.